The Cat and the Canary is a British horror mystery comedy released in 1979, directed by Radley Metzger.
It's basically a sort of classic murder mystery set in a big mansion. The plot is there's a rich guy called Cyrus West who died 20 years previous. It's the anniversary of his death, and his surviving relatives are having a gathering. They've been invited to the house to listen to the reading of the will. So yeah, they're all keen to find out who is going to inherit his house and his money, etc., etc. You know, all these people are mostly cousins, and then there's his lawyer, the sort of family lawyer, who's there as well, and his old housekeeper. He's recorded himself 20 years, previous, before he died, and tells them, what's happening, what's going on, and the deal is that he's going to name the heir. And then they all have to stay in the house as long as everyone agrees that they're still sane after 12 hours. And then they get to keep the money. If everyone believes that they're not sane, there's another heir. There's the next in line who will inherit the money. So obviously that adds a little bit of a sort of mystery element and some jeopardy for whoever is named as the heir. It's obviously then going to be at risk of others wanting to get their grubby little hands on the money. It basically is a sick joke by this guy to put them all against each other. However, thrown into the mix is then a doctor from a local asylum who suddenly comes bursting in and tells them that there's an escaped lunatic from the asylum who likes to hide out in houses and kill people in gruesome ways. He basically kind of thinks he's a cat. He likes to rip people apart with his long nails and things like that. That then adds another bit of danger to everyone. So not only are we thinking that these cousins, etc., are going to sort of try and off each other, they've then got this maniac that apparently is on the loose.
It's a quirky little film, this one. We're actually doing this one this week, though, because sadly Honor Blackman died. Very famous British actress. I think she was 94?
94, yeah. I didn't realise she was that old.
I didn't realise she was still alive. I thought, because I don't mean that in a bad way or anything, but
No.
she's one of those actresses you think, is she still alive? And then you read that she's just died. You're like, wow, God.
That's the thing. A lot of times when these celebrities do reach, quite a ripe old age, they obviously, they haven't been working for a few years because of their age. You kind of forget about them almost. You don't really think about what they're up to. She's still been working up until, I think, about 2015.
She's done loads of things in her career. I suppose she's probably mostly famous as Pussy Galore.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, I mean, when it was announced, like former Bond girl, and it's like, well... Yes, she was, but that was like 60 years ago.
Which one was that? Which one was she in?
She was in Goldfinger, which was, 67, I think? She was arguably one of the most iconic Bond girls. And, of course, with a name like Pussy Galore, there's few Bond girl names that rival that. I mean, maybe Plenty O'Toole or Holly Goodhead maybe rival that on the innuendo stakes. But, but certainly, yeah. One of the more iconic ones, and of course Goldfinger, probably one of the best Bond films as well. But no, she was in other stuff like the Avengers. I don't know about you, but I remember her particularly. I guess because of my age, I remember her from the sitcom The Upper Hand that was on in the 90s.
Yeah, The Upper Hand, which was, if you're not in Britain, that was quite. It wasn't actually a bad comedy.
No, it ran for quite a few years actually. It was actually a remake of a US show called Who's the Boss. I think it was on ITV, but it was quite successful over here and ran for a few years.
My granddad was in an episode of it as well.
Oh, was he? Oh, well,
yeah,
there you go.
I can't remember what he played. I think he may have played a priest. He's one of he turned up in like the weirdest stuff in the last 80s, 90s. I think my granddad worked with Honor Blackman quite a few times over his career, especially because he was in the Avengers, one of the episodes of that. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about The Cat and the Canary, which is quite a strange film. So it's based on a play. There's been a couple of films before of it in the past. I think there was one in 1939.
It was originally made as a silent movie in 1927. Then it was remade as a talkie in 1930 under the name The Cat Creeps. And then it was remade again, in 1939 with Bob Hope. I haven't seen that one, but I'm assuming that's probably got a bit more comedy in it due to Bob Hope being in it.
I quite enjoyed it. It's very cliche, this film. It's kind of one of those, it's a kind of typical murder mystery in a house type film. There's loads of them out there. Murder by Death, Clue. That's great, that film. I mean, any Agatha Christie novel or film. I mean, the famous one, the 10 Little Indians, things like that. Big old house, lots of rich relatives in a house, and then there's a will being read, and then someone gets murdered. I mean, this this isn't kind of a murder mystery in that sense. It's a slightly different.
Not, I mean, that's what I was expecting, but it didn't really turn out like that.
No, because you kind of straight away you think you know who the killer is because you've been told by it that there's this weird lunatic who thinks he's a cat. I mean, it also kind of reminded me a little bit of The Beast Must Die. Do you know that one?
I've heard of it, but no, I've never seen it.
Which is Charles Gray, and they're kind of lots of rich people in a house, and one of them is a werewolf. That's quite a good film. But those films are better than this one. This is quite. I'd say this is a bit eccentric, this film.
It starts a bit slow. I mean, I must mention there's a bit sort of right at the beginning where we obviously see Cyrus West when he's still alive, only very briefly, and we see a child sort of playing, and then there's a cat, and there's a canary in a cage, and then we see the child like running, towards the house, and then we see the cat dead hanging in a bush. But none of that really makes any sense until later on in the film. It took a little while to get going. Then it kind of pulled me in. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm down with this. I want to know, what's going to happen, because all of them are a bit strange in their own ways. Honor Blackman was obviously a little bit she looks a bit sly and nice on the surface, but you can see there's a little bit something underneath. And if she's not the heir to the fortune, she's certainly not going to be happy about it. Some of them don't really know each other very well. Some of them do, and they have a history. So I started to get quite invested, but then I felt the last act kind of let it down. I mean, I've read that some people think Edward Fox's performance is a little bit hammy, maybe a bit scenery chewing and a bit over the top. But for me, I was like, yeah, this is great. I'm getting well into this now. But then when he left, I was like, oh, that's a bit disappointing. I wanted more Edward Fox because he was great. Like when they're all first arriving and and having a drink and etc. You kind of they all interact and you get to know a little bit about each character.
Yeah.
In these kinds of films, you want to take part and you want to try and figure it out.
Yeah.
But it never really gave you enough to work with to be able to do that. So you're then just kind of sat there along for the ride.
I think that's possibly reliant on who directed it. We maybe talk about this guy. Bradley Metzger is not very well known as a mainstream filmmaker. He's more well known as an adult filmmaker. He was almost like a pioneer of the adult film industry in like the 1960s and 70s. And he was very he used unique, weird camera angles and kind of lush cinematography and lavish set design. But I guess that was quite original for the adult film industry, but not so much for mainstream filmmaking, which had probably done all that already. And at that point, films were going elsewhere, and he came along and tried this. And this was the only mainstream film he made in his career. So I think that's probably why this maybe film doesn't completely work, because it's not made by someone who maybe understands mainstream cinema, and obviously there's no sex in this, so he's got nothing to work with in that regard, which is a shame, because I think what's is interesting about this film is the cast. It's got a really kind of great, again, somewhat eccentric cast, I think. You've got people like Honor Blackman, and then you've got Edward Fox, like you said. The film's got Carol Lindley, who was in the Poseidon Adventure that we did at the beginning of the year, up at New Year, I think. Then you've got Olivia Hussey. So Olivia Hussey plays Honor Blackman's roommate.
Well, that's how they introduce her, but I don't know if we're supposed to assume that they're lovers or something. I don't know. It kind of is a strange relationship, and for me it was kind of hinted at, but obviously not really explored in any way. I don't know, there was just weird comments made a couple of times, and I thought, are you trying to imply something there? I don't know, but yeah, it was all a bit odd.
But she's quite well known. She was in Black Christmas. I think possibly people who view our channel will know her from Black Christmas. And Turkey Shoot, which I've mentioned a few times on this channel, the Australian film directed by Brian Trenchard Smith.
And she's also in the Franco Zeffirelli Romeo and Juliet from the 60s.
So Wilfred Hyde-White, he plays the old man in this film. And he's absolutely loving it, calling all his old relatives bastards and all this kind of stuff. And,
leeches and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's really having fun with the language. It's quite weird because his scene, so the beginning of the film, when they all come into the house, they have a dinner, and they set up this film of him talking to them, and it's kind of as though he's sitting there enjoying the dinner with them. And it's a very funny moment. It's quite odd, actually, because it's nothing like the rest of the film. There's this one moment where, so they have a maid who's clearly lived in the house for many, many years as well. And so she walks, in real life, over to his end of the table, and as she goes behind the projector screen, she appears on the projector screen with him as well. And it's kind of a kind of breaking the fourth wall moment. I thought it was actually very funny. And at that point, I thought, oh, okay, where's this film going? Because maybe this film's going to be a bit kind of strange and surreal, and maybe play with the kind of idea of cinema. But it doesn't. I think there's some quite interesting camera angles and shots, but it just doesn't. It just doesn't all hold together. Oh, and the house is quite well known because the house was used in The Omen.
Oh, was it? Oh,
Yes,
right.
it's
there you
the
go. I
great-
thought it looked a bit familiar.
Gregory Peck's house. It was quite an odd house inside actually because it doesn't have that kind of grand inside. It felt a bit empty.
All the rooms are quite small. Sometimes it's a bit confusing about where.
Where you were.
I mean, I should also add that there's also like secret passages
Yeah.
that go all around the house, which of course is how this maniac moves around.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's not a spoiler to say that obviously, he is in the
It's
house.
in the house.
Otherwise, what's the point of the movie?
As we are currently in lockdown and we're not together, we don't have this on DVD. It's an on Amazon Prime film, and that's kind of what we're doing at the moment, recommending films you might like to see. So if you've got sick of all the good films and good TV series, and you want something a little bit quirky, a little bit British, a little bit odd, maybe you're a fan of the director's work, his other work. I don't know. Maybe.
Or just check out some an Honor Blackman performance that isn't Goldfinger.
Exactly. Watch this with the performances. There's some really nice performances, and they're clearly enjoying. It's one of those films that you think they probably thought they were onto some gold here.
This genre is kind of making a comeback at the moment. The remake of Murder on the Orient Express a couple of years ago, and then Ryan Johnson's Knives Out. I think at the end of last year that came out, wasn't it? Knives Out did really well. I think he's going to do a sequel. So yeah, I mean, if you did see either of those and you like them and you kind of craving more, then yeah, I think it's worth checking out. But yeah, I mean, you can get it on DVD. There's never been a Blu-ray that I can find, a DVD in the UK which had a commentary on it, which wasn't on the US release. Not hard to find if you want it on disc.
And that was The Cat and the Canary. And as always, if you enjoyed the video, let us know in the comments below.
Yep, hit that subscribe button there and push that bell button for notifications. There's some other videos to check out over here. Come and find us on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. And join us next week for another video.